socially awkward lolly with resting bitch face? She's perfect. I'd totally marry her.
Here we have two 30-year-olds. Both got ran over, both got isekai'd and reborn with unusual magical talent. But one is an immoral creep with illegal fantasies, and despite what his fanbase might say, in the story Rudeus has always been and will be a shameless pervert. On the other hand, Tanya is a ruthless warmonger, a devil in human form, but she was never this sinister in her previous life. Tanya lives in a war-torn hellscape of the early 20th century. Here, what you believe in could be the difference between living like a king or a slave. Every 10 out of 100 children never get to see their first birthday, while the other 90, along with the rest of the adults, are decimated by starvation and disease. Being a soldier, Tanya the Gurichaf will witness a man-made tragedy that will for the first time engulf the entire world and take away tens of millions of human lives. But most importantly, being a soldier, Tanya will also give us the first trivia of the video. Sexual deviants like Rudeus were executed by firing squad for treason. Fortunately, he got quite lucky with the author. Rich family, private tutor, famous swordsman's father. When it comes to Isekai starts, this one definitely ranks among the best. And spoiler alert, he keeps getting more. Okay, stop. Let's imagine for a second that you're an author trying to write a redemption story. Of course, your protagonist needs some kind of flaw they need to overcome. Let's say they're too overconfident in their abilities. They feel entitled to getting favors from others, but when push comes to shove and things actually get hard, they fall apart and give up. Then if you wanted to redeem this character, hypothetically, you need to write an event that challenges them on each of these specific flaws. An event that would humble, mock, and teach them a lesson. That last part is crucial to get right because if not, character development is either unearned or doesn't happen at all. Some stories get it right and some, well, let me show you. Rudeus is a PDF, straight up. Of course, online you might see it being reframed as simply a portrayal of porn addiction and hypersexuality, but in reality the author confirmed it himself. After the main story ended, Mushoku's author began releasing redundant reincarnation volumes, which are basically a 100% canon epilogue to the story. You don't need to know the context, because context doesn't save what I'm about to show you next. On page 88 of volume 3, Rudeus reminisces of the day when he stole photos of his nieces in bathing suits, which he then, quote, "I used those photos, and my older brother caught me in the act." I think it's very self-evident what the act was and what that makes Rudeus. Okay, so he's a pretty bad guy. Out of all the flaws you could give your main character, this is definitely a choice. But surely he faces consequences for being a predator, right? Some fans often bring up certain extremely tragic and traumatic events, like him dying to Orsted, him seeing his father sliced in half by a hydra, or his mother ending up in a vegetative state as examples of punishment. But if you know the bare minimum about storytelling, then you also know that none of these are relevant for this conversation. Bad things happening to the main character is not the same as consequences for their flaws. Because remember, the event needs to teach the protagonist a lesson. A good example of what I'm talking about is Natsuki Subaru's journey from ReZero. Earlier I already outlined Subaru's flaws, but what's interesting is how hyper-aware the story itself is of his shortcomings. The world doesn't waste any time to punish them. Is he overconfident? Well, now he gets completely humiliated in front of hundreds of high-ranking officials. Is he too entitled? His idol completely cuts ties with him. Does he run away from responsibilities? You get the point. ReZero's world is ruthless, and more importantly, he doesn't leave any room for ambiguity. Subaru knows exactly why he's treated harshly. On the other hand, when Rudeus gets beaten or loses a family member, what is he supposed to take away from it, other than the fact that he was just not strong or fast enough? His perversion would be the last thing he would think about. Okay, and what about this scene? Clearly he's getting punished here, and here. Wait, a second time? How is Rudeus even allowed near her? Well, he has to be near her. For Ares, Rudeus is her magic tutor and protector. Same with Sylphie, in fact, Rudeus knew her from when she was a toddler. He became her center of the world. This is textbook grooming. It doesn't matter if a person lashes out at you for groping them, when for one reason or another they are completely dependent on you. A regular kid isn't capable of this level of manipulation, but nobody can call him out on it because they don't know he's a 40-year-old man. But the author doesn't care to reveal it, because he, and many others who self-insert in Rudeus, are too scared to face reality. To them, it's a story about overcoming past trauma and valuing family, but if that family is a result of years of predation and grooming, how much of it is really earned? What is Mushoku Tensei's message? This girl wasn't as lucky. If Rudeus' world completely bent over for him, Tanya's world is trying to break her. She was thrown into 20th century Germany. No, not the problematic one, the one before that, which unfortunately was also universally hated. Tanya dislikes war. To her, it's a waste of resources. And yet, from the very first episode, we can see a 10-year-old girl in full uniform shooting down soldiers from the sky. Sounds like the last place someone like her would go. How did she get here? Well, there's only one thing Tanya hates more than war. Incompetency has no place in Japan's corporate world. A system of unforgiving rules that Tanya mastered. With several company awards under her belt, she secured a career that many would be envious of. Tanya values cold, hard logic over everything else, and now her beliefs are finally bearing fruit. But humans don't act purely on logic. We are animals, first and foremost, driven by emotion and impulse. This realization was the only thing going through her mind. Tanya felt no malice towards her attacker, nor fear of her impending death. It was just a miscalculation. Tanya doesn't believe in a benevolent God. If God existed, he would never allow this kind of thing to happen. Then whoever stopped time just now must be the devil or something similar. How about being X? Her hunch was correct. The voice is irritated. It doesn't sound benevolent, but it isn't neutral either. This God is disappointed. The world lacks faith, but it doesn't know why.
You fail to sufficiently analyze your customers' needs. Of course there's no faith in a world full of advanced science where almost everyone's core needs are met. Here you only matter to the weak and desperate who look for someone to cling to when times get hard.
Tanya completely rejects the need for God. Reincarnating someone like her is a waste of time. But now, being X wants to do an experiment.
What if I placed you
into dire straits?
Do you think then your faith in me
Would be awakened.
Our Isekai protagonists surprisingly have a lot of similarities, but this would be the first main difference. Tanya's god is very spiteful. Orphaned, poor, and no friends. If this Isekai star had a rating, it would be a 1 out of 10. But being dealt a bad hand is not enough to subdue someone like Tanya. She already clawed her way through the corporate ladder once. If anything, the second time should be easier. But which ladder? The year is 1923, child labor has already been banned, and at 9 years old, it's not like Tanya wants to work at a factory. Fortunately, magic in this world does exist, something she's quite talented at. And look who's always hiring.
なぜその年で士官学校に志願を?
他に道はない。
Speedrunning life has an obvious byproduct. If you do things earlier than everyone else, you end up younger than everyone around you. Tanya took it to the extreme. Unlike Rudeus, who was more than happy to hang around kids a quarter of his age, she has her own ambitions. Still, a child will always be seen as naive and innocent. No matter how smart Tanya sounds, she sticks out like a sore thumb. And of course, people can't help but notice. Foolish recruits underestimate her, but thankfully, the wisest circle at the top couldn't be happier. The Empire is struggling. In a war for survival, you can't discriminate too much. And more importantly, Tanya is no regular foot soldier.
あれは幼女の皮をかぶった化け物です。
Feared as a devil of the Rhine by enemies for her terrifying combat prowess, nicknamed White Silver by her allies for becoming their ace, Tanya's reputation on the battlefield quickly became a legend. But legends aren't entirely accurate. For those who fought her firsthand, Tanya leaves only one impression. A mad dog. Her movements are erratic, almost resembling an animal. There's barely any consideration for safety. It's a constant gamble that the other side isn't equally unhinged. For a rationalist like Tanya, this is weirdly uncharacteristic.
なぜ創造主を称えん?
But it's not an accident. For a god, being X doesn't like to mind its own business.
分かったな
What at first glance seemed like an attempt to teach Tanya a harsh lesson, now is revealed to be a cruel game.
今後貴様は宝珠を使うたび神への祈りを唱えずにはいられない
Man vs. God, a story humanity has been telling since the invention of stories themselves, because at its core is an intrinsic power inside every human, the power to fight fate and decide the path for yourself. But this story elevates it to a clash of ideals, a game of cat and mouse, where the cat is a cruel eldritch horror and the mouse is one grumpy salaryman. Tanya has to overcome history while at the same time face soldiers with suspiciously godly powers. She is the ultimate underdog in a world that hates her, and to survive it, she needs a prayer.
おう、神よ、我を許したまえ。
Oh Lord, forgive me. You have allowed a gospel of degeneracy to flourish. You have built a world that rewards the wicked, allowing predators to dress themselves as saviors.
そうは無知にして哀れな子羊。
You have constructed an algorithm of false idols, feeding the delusions of weak men, granting them the comfort of fantasies they never earned.
真実を知らぬ迷い子。
Forgive me, O Lord, for I'm about to burn their sanctuary to the ground.
主をたたえし歌。我歌わん。
I sing a song of praise unto the Lord.
ああ、我、主をたたえん。主の御心を我たたえん。くそ、貴様など豚の餌がお似合いだ。